Hello guys, welcome to another weekly breakdown video. Today I will be breaking down the third week of May, starting from 20th May 2024. So before starting my weekly breakdown, let me show you the callouts one by one. Whenever you're auto blocked, these callouts, I mark this or I write this down whenever I figure something out. For example, when I'm backtesting here and I figure, I notice something which might be important for us to write down a note. A call out is just like a note. For example, when you were going to that slave programming school, when you wrote down something important, the teacher says you to mark it as a note, right? So this is exactly what that means in trading perspective. So whenever your auto block that you mark doesn't get the move, doesn't always means you were totally wrong of the trade. It can just be an inducement to then make the move to the direction afterwards. We have seen this a gazillion of times and it works. The trade did play out, but there was news in our timing. So okay, I'll show you why I've written this. Whenever there is no auto block in the H1 time frame because of the huge move, for example, right, on the H1 this might be a higher high and some sort of price action, something like this, and you're looking for sales. So obviously you want to look for supply zones in here, right? So on the hourly there was nothing. So in the M15, why I've written this was on the H1, this one move can be on the M15, it can be something like this: higher low, higher high, higher low, and then we can find a beautiful supply zone. In the same move, we can find a beautiful supply zone on the M15, right? So that is what I have written right there. And yeah, going on Wednesday, my bias wasn't clear, and also it was CPI, so waiting for the best option. Sometimes, some days, the best thing you can do is not trade, bro. Whenever the bias is not clear, why do you wanna trade? The market is telling you, bro, the bias is not clear, do not enter the market. The market is telling you that. So why, bro? And whenever the market is clear, it gives a clear signal. That is when you trade your setup. And without, you have to have the balls to take the trade. Tuesday, the bias wasn't clear, and also there was no clear strong zones to trade, so didn't trade it on Tuesday. Okay. So obviously whenever there's no bias and also no auto blocks to trade from, you don't trade. Just because Monday didn't made a down week, meaning a Morobuzu candlestick like this, there was no down week, only a up week, doesn't give us enough confluence to take a trade on Tuesday to make that week, right? That all we have learned through trial and error by losing a lot of money. So yep, and yeah, we have to have a money mindset, money conscious mind. Then only we will start attracting that, right? So let me delete all of these callouts because it takes a lot of space, and let me quickly show you the news, and then we'll start the weekly breakdown, right? If I do these steps first, then it will be so much clearer while I explain those things when those things appear, right? So on Monday there was no news, Tuesday there was no news, you can argue, because this was very late on the day. Wednesday, Thursday and Friday there was news. So Monday and Tuesday, if we can catch a trade, it would be very, very good. And yeah, the same sort of thing on this week was a well enough news. And quickly and clearly we can see on the weekly we have marked this supply zone. On the weekly we don't do anything special, just the supply or the demand, because we know that the market is either going from a supply to a demand or demand to a supply. So right now it is going from some sort of demand right here to this supply zone, and looking at how this candle closed, next week my bias is clearly bullish and targeting this draw of liquidity. And also I mark the draw of liquidity, which is the target on the weekly. Let me quickly, correlate it with DXY. As you can see on DXY, my bias was clearly bearish, and if I am bearish, I am targeting this draw of liquidity. And right now the market is coming from some sort of supply there to some sort of demand right here. So that is what I was looking for on the DXY and GBP, and on GBP USD on the daily time frame. Now the weekly bias is clearly bullish on GU, so whichever trade will align with our weekly bias being bullish, that will be a higher probability, right? So going on Monday, my bias was clearly bullish. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday closed as bullish. The whole week was bullish last week. So let me quickly correlate it with DXY. On DXY, whereas it filled up this fair value gap, as you can see, it filled up 50% of this fair value gap and then gave a bearish pin bar rejection. So after a rejection like this on Friday, Monday we will look for sells on DXY, whereas buys on GBP USD, which is aligning to the T, right? So that is when I start going to the lower time frames like the H4. On the H4 there was a break of structure, as you can see, and on the if I was a swing trader, I would look for something like this, but I'm not. So I go to the lower time frames like the H1 to mark my demand zones. And on Monday there was a demand zone right here. Obviously without our Asian range closing, we can't say nothing. So the Asian range was very tricky. You can say this zone I've marked as previous structural liquidity, I remember, and this was the fair value gap I was looking to trade. But we don't take fair value gap trades, as you know. So on Monday we didn't got our trade, as you can see right here. So on the M15 we can clearly see there was a demand zone, but this demand zone was made on the day itself. When the market opened, we got the demand zone on 3 a.m. Indian Standard Time, which we don't trade because we only like to trade the zones that are made on London or New York session, because we are trading GBP USD. So this was the market open candle, and the move did happen, but it was a low probability trade, so I didn't took the trade. On the live markets, I can guarantee you I would have not taken this trade. So Monday I didn't took anything, and yeah. So now if I go to Tuesday, my bias on Tuesday still remains bullish. So going on Tuesday now, my bias, it closed as a doji candle on the daily time frame, and on DXY it was also bullish. On DXY it was bullish. On GBP USD it was kind of doji right here, right? So it was choppy, to be honest. So on Tuesday trading was very confidential, as you can see right here. So what I did, I just didn't trade it Tuesday, bro. Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do, mate, right? So Tuesday, oh sorry mate, what the fuck. On Tuesday I am looking for something like bullish but also bearish at the same time. So if I go to the lower time frames like the H4, it was very tricky, because you will see why I'm saying all of those things. So now going on Tuesday, I am looking for, the bias is not clear, but if I am aligning it very thoroughly, then I will be looking for sells. And if I am looking for sells, there was no strong zones. I have written a call out, right? If there is no strong zones, you don't trade. So there was no strong zone on Tuesday, so I decided not to trade. But the move did end up happening from somewhere on this supply right here, but we don't care. So on Tuesday also was a no trade day. This week we didn't go the trade on Monday and Tuesday, Wednesday. Is it something we need to care about? No. If the market is not giving an opportunity, you don't take it. Simple as that. So Tuesday closes doji on GU, and on DXY also it closes doji. So on Wednesday what you will do? Simple. The answer is simple. The bias is not clear. We don't know if the market wanna go up or wanna go down. In this case, you wanna sit in your hands and let the market play out and do its thing. On Wednesday that is clearly the market telling you that we don't know. Even the market don't know what is gonna happen. Trading charts does communicate with people who wants to listen. Be a good listener in the market. Also on Wednesday there was GBP CPI news, which is a high impact news. Also what I was thinking at this time was, Monday and Tuesday didn't give us any bias. It is not aligning with the weekly bias being bullish. So waiting for Wednesday, the bias is not clear, so waiting is the best option. And also there is CPI. So who knows, waiting for Wednesday, we might get our bias for Thursday. So with that mindset, what I did on Wednesday, I just waited for the candle to close, and the candle closed as a bearish pin bar. This is when going on Thursday, now my bias is so clear. Just because I waited for Wednesday to close, my bias is so clear on Thursday, right? So it was very interesting, and yeah, you need to do that. You don't need to trade always. You don't need to, the market doesn't or will not provide an opportunity every single day. On the daily time frame, we can clearly see there was a fair value gap which got filled. After filling up this fair value gap, it has not shown any signs of rejection. So we don't consider, until and unless the price is not showing any rejection, we don't consider that. So this closed as a bullish candle right here. And yeah, going on Thursday, I will look for buys on DXY, which would be sells on GBP USD. So both of them were clearly aligning on Thursday. Oh, haram. So going on Thursday, my bias was bearish now, and it was also aligning with DXY being bullish. As you can see, the fair value gap got filled and didn't give any rejection from here. So this is when I go to the lower time frames to look for some sort of supply zone. So on the 4 hourly, there was nothing. As you can see, it was literally chopping around the whole week from Monday till Wednesday. It was literally chopping around. So we didn't got anything. So waiting for Wednesday's CPI to close, it was a very good decision, because on the hourly, we got something, a move something like this. Going up, came down, went up again. This was wicks on the 4 hourly, but it was decision candlestick on the hourly, as we can see. On the hourly, there was no supply zone to trade from. As you can see, this was the higher low, higher high, lower highs, lower lows. And yeah, going on the lower time frames like the M30, that is when I look for supply zones, obviously. So even on the M30, this was one move, so didn't got our supply zone. That is when I go to the M15 to look for supply zones. The same thing I've explained there on the call out, on one of my call outs, right? One move on the hourly might be some moves on the lower time frames. So same exact thing happened here. M15 made a higher highs, higher lows, higher highs. Change of character right here, lower highs, lower lows. That is when we got a beautiful change of character with a supply zone, not one of the strongest yet, because it's an M15, and also the position in the market is right now, it's very, very tricky. So I waited for the Asian range to close. This was the only trade I took throughout the whole week, and I have also journaled this trade if I want to look it back. And yeah, we got a beautiful rejection again on the M15, and at 2 p.m. as you can see, our M15 supply zone got mitigated, Asian high liquidity got swept. So it was a B setup, not a high probability setup. Obviously in the live market, I would have not taken this trade. And also there was news. I traded news, which is not allowed in most prop firms. And yeah, that is what the result was, a win. So a win is a win at the end of the day. So going on Friday now, just because you saw it, right? Just because we waited for Wednesday to close, we got the bias for Thursday, got a winning trade. Now on Friday, my bias is bearish again, so we'll look for sells again. And the same sort of thing on DXY. The bias was bullish on Thursday, so on Friday, I'm looking for buys. Slaves. So going on Friday now, I was looking for buys. Sorry, I was looking for sells. On the H4, I would look for some sort of supply zones, which I didn't had still yet, because the market was chopping around, as you can see. And if I show you the news, on Friday there was GBP news and also USD news. So those are the days where you don't want to trade, because both our session that we trade, London and New York, both have news. So it's a low probability day to trade, to be honest. And yeah, going on the lower time frames like the H1, I was looking for some sort of supply zones, which we ended up getting or not. Let's see. So there was a supply zone right around here on the hourly, you can argue, but a move something like this didn't make sense to me, at least. So I marked this H1 fair value gap, which was the closest. The price did end up going to this fair value gap, but didn't respect it. Even this supply zone that I've marked right here on the M30 wasn't respected. So sometimes your zones that you mark will not get respected, and that's fine. The H1 fair value gap got filled, didn't get respected. M30 supply got mitigated and liquidity got swept, didn't get respected, right? It also gave an inducement right here, gave a fake move. Many would have entered here. I have entered here and took a loss, and that's totally fine. And after sweeping this liquidity, it went to the last supply zone on the hourly. And when it went there, when it reached there, it was already too late for us to take the trade. It was not our timing. We have certain time zones to trade from. We only trade certain time zones, and if the trade is not aligning in those time zones, we don't trade. Simple as that. That's one of our rules, and I am very rigid in my rules. So yeah, that was the weekly breakdown. This was a very tricky week, to be honest. Nothing much to be learned. And yeah, bias was bullish, did ended up happening, but as you can see, it was a roller coaster week. Some days it was going up, some days the bias was not clear. And yeah, If you were patient enough and if you followed your plan, you would have avoided this week as a loss. As much as winning in trading is important, avoiding loss is as much important or more important. Capital preservation is very important in trading, and if you can do that, that's what you need. That's the edge. That's the holy grail in the market. Patience and good psychology.